The Australian media is just so shameless when it comes to reporting on abortion. They are just so ideologically driven and one-sided. There's no attempt at accuracy or balance at all when reporting on our movement or on pro-life bills. But if there's one organisation and one journalist that has dropped that bar even lower and stooped to new depths, well, that's the ABC and its SA political editor, Stephanie Richards. We had an interaction with her recently that we're going to talk about, so hence I've got a special guest, my husband, James Howe, and that's today on The Dr. Joe Show. So thank you for watching. If you're new here, please hit the subscribe button. The more people that subscribe, the better.
Hit it.
James, stop it. So today we're going to talk about Steph Richards. So I met Steph Richards on the very first day of the SA live birth.
Sorry, when you say we're not going to click stop, what do you mean?
I just mean we're going to go. We're going to do it now. It's going to be live, unfiltered. We can do this. He's giving me death stares.
I think we should hit stop.
No, we're not. Okay, so on the first... I've really got him under duress here. So on the first day, which will have the trolls really confused, because some people think I'm like a trad wife and you're bullying me into this. Other people...
Hang on, we didn't agree upon you saying that line.
Anyway, let's get into the actual...
Start this again. No. She's gone off script and this is intolerable for a submissive wife.
Luckily, I've got the mic. I don't think they can hear you that much. So last year...
You gave this woman a mic.
last year when we did the live birth spill in South Australia on the very first day, I got contacted by Steph Richards, who's the ABC political editor, and she wanted to interview me on the bill. Now, she came to my house. We talked for a very long time. I even showed her the late-term abortion procedure so she knew exactly what it was she was writing about. I don't think she did know up until that point. She's quite an interesting woman. Like, she doesn't give much away on her face. In fact, most of the time she just looks pissed off at you. Would you say? Do you?
I don't know. She looked very shifty on the. She looked very shifty on the phone footage that I got of her. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
She sort of like very shiftily looked at me and then shuffled a little bit.
Yeah, she always looks a bit shifty, I think. And when she came around to our house, I couldn't tell where she stood. I assumed she was from a pro-abortion perspective. And in fact, the story that she did put up to announce the bill, it was a lineup of pro-abortion politicians saying that this was a forced birth bill, even though that wasn't true because women who have late-term abortions are forced to give birth anyway. They just give birth to a dead baby. So right from the beginning, I felt that was the perspective she was coming from. But then towards the end of the campaign, so what had happened was the bill lost by one vote, and there was a big kind of hoo-ha because Jing Lee had told Michelle Lenzik that she would pair, and so that is what she'd told her. But then on the night of the vote, I spoke to Jing Lee. She agreed not to pair. And then Michelle Lenzik was, then desperately trying to find another pair. And at the last minute, Dennis Hood, another one of her Liberal MPs who claimed to be pro-life, he paired out. So the bill failed by one vote. And I was really grateful to Jing Lee for not pairing. We took a selfie together. But then in this extraordinary thing that happened about 2 weeks later, the pro-abortion side had been shopping around to kind of find an MP who would say that I'd bullied them into not pairing. And so they tried Sarah Game. Sarah Game refused to say that I'd bullied her because that was just the truth. I told her not to pair, but I didn't bully her. They
came after me, but I didn't admit to them how much you bully me. So. You must be grateful for that.
That's not true. That's just James. And I'm not a bully. And then
she's not a bully.
Then they went after Jing.
I promise.
Then they went after Jing Lee. And Jing Lee gave this extraordinary statement in the Parliament where she said an unnamed visitor had, intimidated her. Never mind the fact that Jing thanked me for talking to her, thanked her for telling her how close the vote was, and she decided to not pair of her own volition. I mean, the way they made it sound was like I was standing there with like a baseball bat threatening Jing's life and that of her children and her family. I mean, she's paid $200,000 a year. She should be able to have a conversation about pairing or not pairing and about policy without feeling grossly intimidated and bullied. It was insane, wasn't it?
Yes, it was a little bit insane.
Anyway, all of this to say this big scandal broke out and I went to David Bevan on ABC Radio to explain the whole thing and the way it had gone down. And I wasn't worried about it because I knew that I had the receipts, I had the selfie, the text message of Jing thanking me. I knew this was just a concocted story to try and attack me. But then after the David Bevan interview, I came outside and there was a whole gaggle of press, like wanting to do an informal press conference. James was with me. I was really grateful he'd taken the day off work because this just got really intense, the amount of kind of scrutiny and attacks that they were throwing my way. It was like hit piece after hit piece. from people like Tori Shepherd in The Guardian, and then from the ABC as well, from Steph Richards. So anyway, we were there, and I was doing this press conference, and then you asked me a question, I think because you felt like I hadn't properly answered it. So James was just standing there, as was his habit, with the iPhone, filming what they were doing, and then you asked me a question. Do you remember what it was?
Well, I asked you, do you think that it's appropriate to threaten politicians with holding them to account over what they do in Parliament?
Yeah.
So
what happened next?
Well, then then you answered the question.
But I started laughing.
You started laughing while I was asking the question. Because you thought it was kind of funny. I was trying to be funny and you thought it was funny. And also it was just, I think it just exposed, I guess what I was trying to do, I was annoyed at Jing Li because she was just being an absolute like lying sociopath basically. And this is like this thing that apparently it's acceptable in politics to just lie about someone and try and destroy them personally just so that you can save your own hide. And I actually just think that that's just called being a despicable person. I just think that that's just called being a bad person, basically. If that's what you're willing to do, you're just a bad person. That's the way that I see it anyway. So I was annoyed by the whole thing, but it was also ridiculous, and it just had this kind of ridiculousness to it, you know, this idea that if you tell people not to vote for a certain politician, that makes you a bully. You know what I mean? Like how ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. Yeah. The whole thing was so ridiculous.
All I had said to Jing was, I've got 120,000 followers on social media. Sorry, I'm getting very close. And, you know, if you don't vote for this bill, like if you pair out, that'll effectively mean the bill fails. And I'll tell everyone what you did and you'll be held to account. I mean, that isn't bullying. That's politics. And
I mean, if that's bullying, then the democratic system of government is by nature a bullying system of government, you know, one where politicians are relentlessly and continuously bullied by the public. I mean, that's the only conclusion that you can draw from it, right? Like there is no other way of looking at it because the democratic system works it works by politicians behaving a certain way and then the public observing the way that they behave and then making decisions around who they're going to elect again and who they're going to kick to the curb by not voting for them. Yeah. There is no other way of this system actually working than that. And so you were just your so-called threat was designed to do nothing other than to exercise your right as a thinking autonomous human to not vote for someone and to direct other people to do it. And that's just influence, you know. You can't force anyone not to vote for them. That's the other thing. So anyway, I said that, I asked that question, you giggled, and then Steph Richards.
I giggled because you were asking it.
Of course, it was funny.
It was funny, like you were pretending to be
It was just two people being human beings, which these psychotic leftist activist journalists don't understand. They don't understand basic human interaction.
It was funny to me because there were all of these journalists and then there was my husband and you were just asking a question at the press conference with your iPhone.
Yeah, I'm actually a journalist too, though. Okay,
I would like to,
which is also completely irrelevant because a journalist is just a human being who writes shit in a newspaper. Yeah. Like, anyway,
tell what I answered the question.
Yeah, so you answered the question. I can't remember what you said. You just would have said something along the lines of what I just said, which is that this is just how a democracy actually works, which these people seem to have a lot of trouble getting their head around. But anyway, but then Steph Richards, when she went to actually write the article, so she did something incredibly just sly and deceitful and just mind-blowingly unethical. I don't understand how she's still a reporter for the ABC.
Can we backtrack for a second? So they published this article and it's called Power, Passion and Pre-Selection, How Social Media Has Influenced South Australia's Abortion Debate. And it's the first article where you have featured. So it starts by saying Joanna Howe's husband, James, held up his phone filming as the pair left the ABC Adelaide studios on Wednesday morning. He kept his camera rolling as Professor Howe, a prominent anti-abortion campaigner and University of Loyal academic, strode over to the microphones of the waiting media and answered questions from journalists. As the doorstop interview wrapped up, Mr. Howe asked his wife a question of his own.
Yeah. So anyway, you already know the question. I already said it. But do you think it's wrong for a member of the public to threaten a politician with holding them to account over what they do in Parliament? So threaten them with holding them to account. That's an important part of it, because what Steph Richards did is she shortened my question somewhat pointedly to say, do you think that it's wrong for a member of the public to threaten a politician over what they do in Parliament? So she got rid of threaten them with holding them to account. And so now it sounded more like what Dr. Joe here was doing was like, do you think it's wrong to threaten them? Vote the right way, or I'm coming to your house with a can of petrol and a box of matches.
I do that anyway. I'm like 5 foot.
That's the thing, and so you can just see like this is a small and of course if this happened on the other side of politics,
where they just bastardized quotes deliberately for an agenda.
Yeah, that's right. If you say, let's just say, for example, there was like a climate activist and you just completely chopped their quote, then that would just be front page news, because it's a story in and of itself. A journalist behaving so egregiously unethical is in and of itself a news story, or it should be. This should be on the front page of the Advertiser, being an Adelaide journalist. This should be a very big story. But of course, this chick knows that she can get away with it, which is why she feels free to behave in such a sly, deceitful way.
And so she did that. She can you just say it again? What she said? She said, "Do you think?"
She said, do you think that it's wrong for a member of the public to threaten a politician over what they do in Parliament? And she did have ... which as a former journalist, there is a case for doing that sometimes, right? So if someone does a ridiculously long quote and they say something that's relevant here and something that's relevant here, but a whole lot of irrelevant fluff in the middle, you can remove that and then you sort of put ... in order to inform people that you've taken something out, okay? And that's for journalists who actually want to behave in an ethical way, to just to indicate to people that the quote was longer, but there was some irrelevant stuff that you removed. It's not, however, for taking things that actually are not only relevant, but provide vital context to the quote. And that if you removed those things, it would turn it from an innocuous, benign quote into a malicious threat, which is what
she did.
She did.
And then she follows it up with Professor Howe chuckled before replying.
Yeah. She tried to turn her into like a villain,
like an evil Disney villain who's like in cahoots with this man who's like asking, we're both part of something. Yeah,
we're like Bonnie and Clyde, and we've got like an inside joke, and we're sort of just giggling with each other.
It was just so ridiculous. But I think what was really cool was we didn't take it lying down and we immediately posted to social media. Should we watch what we posted? You want to know how journalists lie? Here it is. Take this piece, for example, by Steph Richards. There are many elements to this piece that are either blatant lies or misleading, but let me just talk through one example that makes it very clear how they're trying to stitch me up. So after I did the David Bevan interview, I came out of the ABC and I was surrounded by a press pack wanting to do a doorstop interview. My husband was there. As is his habit, he filmed the entire thing. Towards the end of the interview, after the journalists had peppered me with lots of questions, my husband actually intervened and asked me a question. Now, I started grinning madly and giggling a little bit as he started asking this question because it just looks so funny. So in her report, she writes, Mr. Howe asked his wife a question of his own. Do you think that it is wrong for a member of the public to threaten a politician because of what they do in Parliament? Professor Howe chuckled before replying. Not only does she deliberately take out of the quote the bit that gives the whole question its meaning, the bit that makes it sound like we're not horrendous, like my husband and I are not this team of villains who just go around mugging politicians, threatening to kill their kids and burn their houses down. She also then says Professor Howe chuckled before replying, like I'm some kind of Disney villain. We were recording it, so take a look at what actually happened in that exchange.
Do you think that it's wrong for a member of the public to threaten a politician with holding them to account over what they do in Parliament?
So I think that members of the public, such as myself, are absolutely entitled to hold politicians to account. So I think it's fair to say that no one still actually believes that I bullied someone in the parliament. At least no one with an IQ of over 40 points. Just saying your camera work.
Hey?
Your camera work.
Why? What happens?
It's very shaky.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Well, it's hard because I had to look at you and ask my question. Normally they've got a cameraman, but then they've just got the mic,
You're
so
right.
it's
You were
tough.
multitasking and you didn't. Yeah. I mean, it was really good. And I think the thing...
I can't afford a cameraman, I got to do it all myself.
I'm just grateful that he helps me on those really sticky days when the attacks get really a lot, and it's really nice to have you. Anyway, the really, I think, incredible thing about the whole thing, which just shows that they just know they were in the wrong. These newspapers and journalists, they never retract things. People always get angry about their stories and claim they're biased or one-sided or whatever, but they never change them. But we posted that reel, requested a change, and they did, didn't they?
They just chucked back in the withholding them to account bit, kind of like the most important part of the paragraph. They put that back in.
Which just exposes how pathetic this whole thing is, like they write their little hit piece. Steph Richards has her pro-abortion agenda, and, this is just what they do. Yeah,
but they just put the bit back in. They didn't, sack Steph Richards or do like an investigation.
They didn't apologise.
They didn't put a correction the next day front and centre on their website, like the original article was front and centre.
Yeah.
So, of course, none of that from the ABC, which is exactly what you'd expect. Even though, this is an organisation that's paid for by everyday people. Like you and I.
Yeah, so. It's totally ridiculous. There's more to the Steph Richards story. I just wanted to do Steph Richards part 1, so that's what this is. Just giving you a little bit of an explainer about who she is, our interaction with her, how unethically she operated on this occasion. She then, shopped around throughout the entire campaign to try and find like just one woman who really, really needed to inject her baby's heart with poison in the 3rd trimester, and she found Taylor Jane on the day of the vote. It's the most ridiculously one-sided article, as well as a filmed piece to camera. I'm going to cover that in a future episode. But before I say that's today on the Dr. Show, do you want to say anything? Got any more words?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Joe.
Thank you to my wonderful husband, who's the rock of our family and who helps me do all this stuff. You don't laugh, he is.
Cool.
And I'm very grateful to him. He's the guy that made me pro-life. That's why they think that I'm a trad wife, because he apparently is forcing me to do this. But really it was more just that we had a big fight when I was 21. He couldn't believe that I was pro-abortion. I couldn't believe that he was anti-abortion. That was an argument you won in the end. And I'm very grateful for his help. So thank you for watching, and that's today on the Dr. Joe Show.
All right, good. I think you got all the lines right, so just get back in the kitchen now.